Morning, Miss Collins. I believe you're still muted.
The story of the last 2 years.
How's it
How
going
are
this
you
morning?
this morning, Sebastian?
Doing well.
Good. Sorry to start off with a muted
No, no,
moment.
no problem. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Just to start off the interview, do you mind stating your name and tell us a little bit about your career field?
Yeah, my name is Beth Collins, and I work in advertising sales. I'm the advertising director for the Kansas City Business Journal.
Okay, yeah. What does the Kansas City Business Journal do, and what are they about?
Well, we are the area's #1 resource for business news. So we have a weekly publication and we host lots of events, as well as have a lot of digital opportunities for clients to mostly B2B, business to business clients, to be able to interact with one another and advertise their products and services.
Right. So you already know my name. My name is Sebastian Mendoza.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually a student ambassador for the ISD. Currently, I'm in the business pathway working through entrepreneurship. So it's really neat being able to talk with another person in the industry, because I like to hear about startups and whatnot. Actually, I've read a couple articles about a few startups that you guys have been interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to some of the questions. How did
Absolutely.
you get here, and where are you now in your career?
Well, I am, I started out in a field, my field of study was science. I had a degree in kinesiology and loved to learn about how the body worked. And over time, I really realized that my skill set was based more on being involved with people. So I got into sales at a really kind of a entry level position and kind of really enjoyed that and continued to move forward in my career. I've been in sales for about 15 years and I've been in management of sales for this is my 8th year.
Okay. Yeah. So were there any sort of events or any particular parts in your life that made you say, okay, maybe this isn't the career field I want to choose, right? Because you said you were
Mm-hmm.
studying the medical field, but now you moved to business.
Mm-hmm.
Notice you have that personal interaction kind of quality about you.
Yeah. So I'm from a very large family and I'm number 5 out of 6 kids. And there
Oh,
were
wow.
4 of us in college at the same time. My dad was an Army helicopter pilot. And so I grew up in Illinois. And the practicality of going to college was you better find out a way to pay for it. So I joined the Illinois National Guard. And in the state of Illinois and in the state of Kansas, there are only 4 states throughout the country that offer a scholarship at 100% of your tuition is paid by the National Guard. So in Illinois, I was able to have my college essentially paid for. So
Right.
I was able to graduate without any loans. And I was always fascinated by how the body worked. And so when I chose kinesiology, that was really the path out of high school that I thought I wanted to follow. My plan after college was to go to chiropractic school. And I was actually, it was in Illinois. I got accepted into a school in Dallas and in here in Kansas City. And that's kind of long story short, but that's kind of what led us initially to Kansas City was me coming into an idea of going to chiropractic school. What stopped me from doing that was taking on additional loans and putting my life on pause for a medical degree where I would need to set up a business with I got married right out of college. And so my husband had a job where he would be moving a lot potentially. And I didn't want to start up a business and have a lot of debt with, startup costs, depending on wherever he would go.
Right. Right. Okay.
Practicality.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in that experience of yours, how did you, so obviously you went through and you had a little bit of practical issues, but how have you been able to like apply what you learned about
Yeah.
what you majored in to your actual work now?
Well, what's funny is I had a minor in coaching. So ultimately, I did a lot of coaching in high school sports, and I've always enjoyed working with people and helping them develop their own talents. So it was a really natural fit when I went through, kind of some entry level direct marketing type sales jobs right out of college, just to kind of learn the skills. And then I got into more corporate environments. It was very natural for me once I developed those skills personally as a subject matter expert to be able to move into an opportunity where I could coach others to do the same thing. So I was really lucky and had just absolutely incredible support along the way from leaders who saw some ability in me when it came to the ability to coach others and to be able to mentor. And so that fostered some opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise had those people in leadership hadn't, identified, hey, she's got some skills. I think we want to go ahead and develop those a little more.
I think it's really humble of you to recognize that there's people along your way that have crafted you into the person that you are today. It's sometimes hard to find people who really notice that it does take a group of support to push you where you were at. It can't just be all by one person.
Oh, absolutely. You have to have people who can open up doors that you don't have access to. And then your job is to open doors to people coming up the ladder behind you.
Right. It's all about that give and take.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about your daily work, what's your favorite part about your job? Is there a part that's not as enjoyable?
Well, those of us who work in sales and work with people are not huge fans of admin. so filling out paperwork is not my favorite thing to do. However, meeting people, I'm getting ready to head off to a lunch with one of our clients shortly. Tomorrow we've got a luncheon with a big group of award winners from our organization. So meeting new people and finding ways to connect them to other people. It's one really cool opportunity that I have at the Business Journal is not only do I get to meet some of the coolest people in Kansas City who are making things happen in business, but I get to meet a lot of them. So therefore I get to introduce people who may not know one another. So that's really pretty cool.
Yeah. So you speak about the admin. What's the paperwork like? What's the gritty part of the job like?
Well, as a salesperson, you have to document what your activity is, especially since we've gone through COVID and my entire team is still working from home. So we just have to make sure they're in sales. Specifically, there are two ways that you can monitor whether you are moving business forward, and that is in your activity and in your results. And so activity would be how many, outreach phone calls and emails did you have in the course of a day. The more you're reaching out to prospects and potential clients, the more you're going to have people reach back to you. How many business moving forward type conversations are you having? So are you meeting with clients and putting those into, we use Salesforce as our customer management tool. So we have to make sure that my job is to make sure that my sales team keeps up their activity and they are tracking what they're doing throughout the week. And if, let's say, they have a lot of activity, but they're not seeing any results, that's where I come in as the coach to be able to say, okay, well, something's not happening, that something's not right. Are we talking to the wrong people? Are we not asking the right questions? Are you not closing? Are you not asking about budget? Like where do we need to refine that skill set? And that's where I come into coach and, get in on those calls and monitor. And I sometimes take the lead and ask those questions, but in order to have a really strong development of any person in any role, you have to be able to monitor what they're doing and coach what they're doing well and what they need some improvement on. So that's really where the admin comes in.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. What was the very first job you ever had? What did you learn from that experience?
So I grew up in a tiny little town in central Illinois, and my first job was in middle school, detasseling corn. And so it was one of those like well-paid jobs, but it's hard work, no matter what the elements were, whether it was raining or 110 degrees, we were out in the fields pulling tassels, and you learn to make monotonous, boring, or sometimes painful work fun because of the people that are around you. So we played a lot of games and had a good time out in these cornfields because we were all in the same boat together.
Right. I think that is really interesting that your story I noticed that with people who are in good management positions and also very good at coaching, it's because they have their own life experience. They know how to make hard things fun, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I noticed, especially here at school, I also, it's not as hard, but my first job was working a wedding reception hall, and that's like,
that's a lot of work. I've managed event venues for weddings, and that's high pressure.
It is. It's the ultimate customer service, especially weddings. I mean, that's someone's biggest life moment. So learning how to deal with that stress and kind of make sure everyone's on the same page, it definitely helps. Um,
Absolutely. Congrats for taking that role.
um, what did your educational pathway look like? I mean, we kind of talked about it,
Mhm.
your college years, but in high school, did you kind of have an idea of what you wanted to do? What classes may have you taken?
I didn't. I would, I always knew that in my family, college was not an option. My parents were very clear that college was not an option, and we had to figure out a way to pay for it. So ultimately, out of the six of us kids, four of us joined the National Guard in Illinois, and so I joined the Air National Guard and spent 6.5 years of my life right after high school, through college, and after college, serving through 9/11. And so I ended up um, going. I had a class, I don't remember, it was an anatomy and physiology class in high school that I absolutely loved, and I loved the instructor. And so that kind of led me, when I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I went to a community college
Right.
and was able to pay my way through that out of pocket without touching my National Guard benefits. And those classes led me to wanting to learn more of, science and how the body works and those kinds of things. Now, your basic biology is pretty boring, but once you get into that anatomy and physiology, and you get into a lot of the kinetic type classes, those were great. So I went down that path, and that's why I chose kinesiology. I was on a pathway to either physical therapy or chiropractic school, and it really ended up being where when I was in college, I learned that, well, you could make some really good money in pharmaceutical sales, or, something else from the medical field. So I started researching that path a little bit, and I didn't have any sales skills. So I did some really interesting, this is crazy, but I did some interesting sales opportunities, like Mary Kay, for example. And I ended up in my early 20s, earned 2 cars and helped develop a few leaders under that opportunity. And, quickly moved on and decided that wasn't for me, but I built a lot of skills in talking to people, keeping myself organized, time management, and kind of having the guts to offer something that maybe I wasn't super versed into people in a different age range. That, I was 22. So I'm talking to women about their skincare, and I didn't really have any issues. but I was also helping women build their businesses, and that piece of that opportunity really kind of fostered my love of getting into sales, and that led into an opportunity with um, cable advertising sales. And then I worked for an event venue and a gym, ironically. And then I got into digital advertising sales with a company that was based out of Chicago. And that's really where the management opportunities began. But it was honestly a career path where I just took the skill that I wanted to develop and found an opportunity and thought, well, I can give that a try. Let's do it. And that, having that open mind, really put me in a position to be able to develop skills I probably never would have, without the fear of thinking I couldn't do it. So somebody was going to be there and teach me along the way.
Right, right. That's really interesting. What would you define as your definition of success?
Okay, so that is definitely different over the years. And I will tell you, when I was first coming up in sales and management, the money I was making and the, making our President's Club trip, like, success to me was those accolades for a very long time. And after a while, you get kind of burned out on, that ends every month. Your sales goals start over, and every year they're bigger. So I really had to dig a little bit deeper to be able to find something that I really felt was a long-term path for success. And for me, going back to that management, it's really helping people. And when I was working for my previous company, I had 3 women on my team who all had babies within a year. And so I was able to help them through that process because I'd already had my children. And, I helped a couple of my female sales reps, through their weddings and buying their first homes, and those life goals along the way, being able to help coach them through life, not just the job, was really very satisfying. And I find that to be the thing that I love most about what I do. But success to me is helping people and finding that balance between looking back and saying, I'm really glad I did that. It scared me, but I'm glad I did it. and looking forward to the next thing that scares me that I want to do as well.
Right. That's really interesting. I like that your story. It's really nice to hear that you're a very humble person. You started out knowing that you had to work for your college, you had to go work hard for it, you found your own path, and through that you made your network, and that's where you find your contentment. That's where you find your success. That's really interesting. I think it's good to not to define success as numbers, but as where am I going to look back in 10 years, 15 years and say, hey, I'm really happy with that. That's really interesting.
Absolutely.
Now, on the kind of note of success and looking back, what can students do now to help them prepare to get a job in this field in the future?
I think number one is just really be curious. If I hadn't been curious along the way, the position I'm in today would not have been an option coming out of a field where I was in a tiny little town and thought I wanted to do something very in a box, like being in a clinical situation and, in the medical field. I absolutely would just die being stuck in a cubicle or in an office all day. So I love that my path has taken me to a lot of different opportunities to get in front of people. I'm super curious about people. So I think when you can show that you care about people and you're interested in what they have to say, you can go pretty far in life. If you're only interested about what you say and how you're going to benefit in a situation, people don't want to be around that, right? So ultimately you just need to make sure that you walk into a situation with the humility to know I'm here to help someone else. And then how can I make that happen? And in order to do that, you have to listen. So listening skills, communication, curiosity. We could all say, hey, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. These are the things I want to do. And there are hard skills required for that. In my job, you have to have really good communication skills. You have to be well-spoken. You have to be able to have probably one of the biggest skills we don't talk about a lot is you have to have the guts to just talk to anybody. You can't be afraid of people. You can't be afraid to ask about numbers and dollars and budgets. And, you just have to be curious and also have the facts in place. But ultimately, helping people, having the right skill sets, writing, communication, those kinds of things are necessary in any field.
Right. It's kind of that, it's not what you know, it's who you know and how you know them, right? How you talk to them, how you interact with them. That's really interesting. Well, that's the end of my questions. It was really interesting talking to you today.